Through the empty streets, the wind howled as the cold night settled over the city. Somewhere within the darkness, a faint cry echoed, a small, desperate wail that barely could rise above the rustling leaves and the distant hum of traffic. A 3-year-old boy, hardly able to stand, sat trembling beside a pile of discarded boxes in a deserted alley. His tiny fingers clutched the rough concrete beneath him as he sobbed. His clothes were tattered, his face streaked with dirt and tears, but most heartbreaking of all were his eyes, unseeing and blank, clouded by the darkness that had surrounded him his entire life. He didn't know how he ended up there. He was unaware of why he was alone. All that he knew was that he was scared, hungry, and cold. His small voice cracked as he cried again, hoping that someone, anyone, would hear him, but no one came until a soft, warm presence approached him. Flinching at the sudden touch of something wet on his cheek, the boy realized it wasn't rough or painful. Instead, it was a gentle, reassuring lick. A warm breath followed, and then a body curled protectively around him. The child sniffled and tentatively reached out, brushing his fingers against thick, matted fur. A dog. The stray, a large mixed breed with patches of missing fur and scars from past battles, had wandered the streets for years. He had witnessed cruelty and neglect, learning that humans weren't always kind. Yet this tiny human, this helpless creature, was different. He bore the scent of innocence, of loneliness. The dog whined softly and nuzzled the child, providing the only comfort he could. The boy, still sobbing, wrapped his arms around the warm body beside him. For the first time that night, his cries became softer. He was no longer alone. Hours passed, and the boy drifted in and out of sleep, his small body curled against the dog's warmth. The stray remained awake, ears twitching at every sound, body tense and ready to protect the child from anything that approached. Then, as the first light of dawn illuminated the sky, the dog's ears perked up at the sound of footsteps and voices. A woman, carrying a bag of groceries, stopped at the entrance of the alley. Her eyes widened in shock as she took in the scene. Before her, a blind child, shivering and alone, wrapped around a stray dog. She dropped her bags and ran forward. The boy whimpered at the sudden noise, but the dog did not growl or lunge. Instead, he lifted his head and let out a soft, almost pleading bark. The woman knelt beside them, her hands trembling as she gently touched the boy's shoulder. "Sweetheart, are you okay? Where is your family?" The child didn't respond. He only clung tighter to the dog, gripping its fur as though afraid of losing his only protector. The woman glanced around, hoping to spot a frantic parent rushing toward them, but the streets remained empty. There was no one looking for him, and her heart clenched. Carefully, she lifted the boy into her arms. He whimpered but did not resist. Instantly, the dog stood, tail low and body tense. The woman hesitated. She could see the loyalty in the dog's eyes. He hadn't merely stumbled upon the child, he had stayed beside him, protecting and keeping him warm. She made a decision. "Come on, boy," she whispered, motioning for the stray to follow. The dog did not hesitate. He walked alongside her, step for step, never taking his eyes off the child in her arms. At the hospital, doctors and social workers scrambled to make sense of the situation. The child was severely dehydrated and malnourished. There was no identification, no missing persons report matching his description. He was truly alone. Yet, he was not. Throughout every examination and test, the stray never left his side. He growled when doctors attempted to separate them and only calmed when the boy's tiny fingers found his fur once more. Days went by with no parents coming forward. The woman, the one who had found them, visited every day, watching as the dog and child remained inseparable. Then one afternoon, as she sat beside the hospital bed, she spoke softly. "You two belong together, don't you?" The dog thumped his tail in agreement. The child, though blind, instinctively reached out toward his furry companion. She made another decision that day. The adoption papers took time. Social workers questioned her, ensuring she understood what she was taking on: a blind child with no known history and a stray dog with an unknown past. However, she didn't waver. A few weeks later, a little boy and his dog walked out of the hospital together. The child, now dressed in warm clothes, and no longer trembling from hunger, held onto the dog's fur as they stepped outside into the fresh air. The woman knelt beside them, smiling through her tears. "Welcome home." For the first time in a long while, neither the child nor the dog felt lost anymore. Moral of the story: sometimes those who are abandoned by the world find one another. Love and kindness are not confined by sight, words, or past experiences. They can sometimes manifest as a stray dog and a blind child who simply needed a second chance at life.